Welcome to Think Free with Stephen and
Daniel.
I didn't know you were going to give it off to me.
That was fun. Let's try it again. Welcome to Think Free with Stephen.
You said and last time. Okay. Hold on. Oh, are you going to say and?
Yeah, let's do it. I'll do it. I was trying it both ways, and both of them sounded crappy. Welcome to Think Free with Stephen
And Daniel.
Two brothers breaking down ideas and ways of thinking about this thing we call life. Unlock your mind to explore more than you ever thought possible. Think free.
All right. Fantastic. This is our first time recording.
Yeah. Welcome back to the first time.
Yes.
And since there's nothing new, it's all happened before and it'll all happen again. It is just a welcome back.
Yeah.
To the first time again.
Reality. Yes.
It's in a loop.
Yeah.
All right. So you and I haven't talked about the flat earther stuff since you sent me that Facebook post, right?
No. Yeah. I mean, we haven't talked about anything.
Mm-hmm.
Have you just deep dived into it?
I did. I was
Is this when you're going to tell me you're a flat earther now?
Well, hang on. Let me get you there one step at a time.
Okay.
If I just jump to the end, then you're just not gonna want to talk to me anymore.
Okay.
So,
okay.
I think we both understand the fact that the more you get entrenched in a single idea and are unwilling to hold or expose yourself to other ideas, the more kind of locked in and your brain starts to atrophy and that sort of thing, right? If you say Christianity is the only way, and I'm not going to look at any ideas outside of Christianity because I don't want to be talked out of. I don't want to be convinced. I don't want to be deceived by the devil, whatever it is. So I'm going to stay in my bubble of what I know to be true. And then you can't ever explore or expand your consciousness because you're committed to
It's safe.
that one reality. So I was looking at the flat earther arguments, which I was quick to dismiss. And I thought, okay, well, here's a chance to explore another idea that's not consistent with what I already believe and see if I can tread those waters and not lose myself in the midst of it. Or if I do change my mind, I'll be glad I did. So what do I have to lose?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I watched a video that was entitled "Don't watch this video!" ! Or something like subtitle like "Hurry up and watch it before YouTube takes it down again," which I'm finding out for a particular segment of the population is the stamp of legitimacy.
Oh yes.
If YouTube takes it down, or Facebook tries to ban it, then it must be true because that's the only reason.
And then you have to use Telegram.
Right, right, where they can't get to you.
Yes.
So this one hadn't been taken down from YouTube. So it started out, and the guy was doing the introduction. He says, I used to be like you. I used to think the earth was a globe. I used to think it was round. And now after studying and asking enough questions, I've come to a different conclusion. I'm sure you will too. And remember, anything that you think or any objections you have, I had those too, and now I believe differently. So you can't surprise me. So I used to be like you, and now I'm grown. So, okay. So I watched, and the video was just a bunch of questions. If the earth is the globe, then why this? And rather than get into all the details of what the questions were, most of which weren't very interesting to me, and I felt like, there's probably a good explanation for that. He then concludes his presentation with saying, and round earthers or globists have answers for all these questions. I was like, yeah, I thought so. And he said, and so do we. The question is, who are you going to believe and which evidence makes the most sense to you? The conclusion I got was after all this postulating and hypothesizing and questioning and what about this, what about that, at the end of the day, he said, we have answers, the other side has answers, and you just pick which one you want to believe. And which I was surprised because I thought he was going to say, look, gotcha, we have more compelling evidence, or our evidence is more backed up by science,
right,
or whatever. And so I realized that even this person who was trying to promote a flat earther agenda or get me to change my mind, or whoever's watching the video to change my mind, at the end of it, he still admitted that his answers weren't necessarily better. It was just, which one do you want to pick? Which one do you want to believe? And so then that got me thinking about, why would somebody choose to believe a flat earther conclusion as opposed to a globist or global conclusion? And it really comes down to what I think motivates most conspiracy theorists, which is the government's lying to us. Everybody's been tricking you. The elites are out to control you, manipulate you, and take advantage of you, take your money, harm you, make you wear masks, whatever they think it is. And the only way that you can have any power over that, because who are you? You're just a little nobody, is to know the truth. Oh, but really I know what's going on. And it's a sense of power and control that they have that gives, I think, a person who is willing to go headlong into a conspiracy theory like this, gives them a sense of like the government, the institution, the powers that be, they may have all the power and all the money, but I know what's going on in my brain. I know the reality. And so in order to be a flat earther, you have to deny the existence of gravity, because apparently if gravity exists, the whole arguments fall apart. So they have a whole different, we don't believe in gravity. We believe in all the other laws of physics except for gravity. Magnetic forces, strong pull, weak pull, Newtonian physics, all this, but just gravity doesn't fit our paradigm, so we're going to get rid of that.
Yeah.
NASA is the great Satan. It's set up, it's a government agency that's set up to deceive us, to perpetuate this lie, to keep us under control. So anything to do with space exploration, landing on the moon, any photos from the Hubble telescope, all that's made up. You just have to assume and grant, I guess, that everything about space exploration that we've ever been shown has all been one giant fabrication meant to pull the wool over our eyes. However, there's never really an explanation that I've seen that says this is why the government has gone to great lengths, or the they, it's probably bigger than the government. Mm-hmm. The they, why have they gone to such great lengths to convince you that the world is round instead of flat? What does that gain them other than, we tricked you, you stupid peasants, which they don't, I haven't seen anybody offer that. Maybe somebody has. But it seems like a way for people who feel desperately out of control, desperately marginalized, desperately in the minority, to take back at least a little sense of control in their own mind and to find other like-minded people who will agree with them. So I found myself feeling a twinge of like, maybe everything I always believed about the shape of the earth was wrong. Maybe there are some good points here. If I'm really going to give this a good try, I need to be willing to not just dismiss it out of hand. I need to really look at it and explore it and test the theory to myself. So have you seen any of the models or the maps of how flat earthers believe the continents are arranged?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So for people who haven't, they say they dismiss the floating pancake theory because that's a way to make them look stupid. Visual for our listeners, it's like a pizza, and the center of the pizza is all the planets in the water, and then the crust of the pizza is this
continents, not planets.
Sorry, thank you. Continents. Yes. The crust of the pizza is the Arctic shelf. With
holding back the waters.
Holding back the waters, right, as the Bible so clearly articulates. And so we can't ever go past the crust or the rim of the earth, because there's this huge gigantic glaciers and the Antarctica, and it messes with equipment and all this sort of thing. And so that's part of the conspiracy. We're not allowed to explore. There's a $30,000 fine from the United Nations if anybody goes south of the 30th parallel, I think it is, or 33rd parallel, one of those. And so there's all this cover up to make sure nobody ever gets to the edge of the earth and reports back what's there. And so then the North Pole's in the center. It's like the center of the pizza, and then all the continents splay out from the center like spokes on a bicycle. And so if that were actually the arrangement of the earth, to go from South America to Australia would take a very long time. And it would take a lot longer than it would take to go from England to Japan, for instance, because England and Japan, being near the center of the circle, would take a very short distance to travel. But South America to Australia tend to be on opposite ends of the pizza, both of them near the crust. And you'd have to travel either in a big half circle around it, or you'd have to travel over the North Pole. However, when airlines fly, we know they don't take either of those paths. They just fly around the bottom half of the globe, much like you do in the Northern Hemisphere. And so there's people that have made that travel. There's people who made that travel multiple times and know that the distance and the time that it takes in an airplane is very similar to the time that it takes to make that same trip in the Northern Hemisphere. And it should,
I hadn't heard that yet.
It should take 5 or 6 times as long. So this is where my brain went, was to say, wait a minute, you couldn't get from Cape Town, South Africa to Sydney, Australia, for instance. Should take a couple of days.
Yeah.
Or you fly across all the continents, you go over the North Pole, or across the North Pole if the earth was flat. And you would know that. You'd look out the plane, you'd be like, why are we flying over all these continents? Why aren't we seeing pretty much all ocean? which was what a globe would predict you would see. And so for the people that get on forums and say, I traveled that route multiple times, my job, my family, whatever, Sydney to Cape Town, South Africa, I've done that trip. It's 13, 14 hours, which is very similar to going from London to Tokyo. Then the only response is, well, you've been tricked. People are messing with all the instruments of all the passengers in the plane. They put you into a trance while you're on the plane. They emit some gas. Somehow the government conspires with all the airlines to make sure that anybody travels that route is tricked into believing that they only travel 14 hours when in reality it took them 3 days. And they mess with your watches and your phones and everything. They're that embedded in keeping this conspiracy going. Or you travel through some sort of portal or wormhole that just gets you from one edge of the pizza to the other in about the same time it would have taken.
Well, that's convenient.
It does. It works out pretty nicely. So when I researched that and I couldn't find any logical explanation for how you can make that trip in about the same amount of time, that to me kind of ended the debate. And I said, until somebody can show a way to explain how you can make that trip over that same distance, because they're similar, the similar latitudes. One is north and one is south. So the London to Tokyo trip is about latitude of 33 degrees north, and Cape Town to Sydney is about 33 degrees south. So on a ball, that should be about the same distance above the equator, below the equator. Okay. But again, with the flat Earth, it's night and day, quite literally. Then you have things like seasons. I mean, they explain night and day pretty easy with their model, but they don't explain seasons and why it's warmer and colder and that sort of thing. So it just took, for me, testing that one thing. I did a bunch of Googling about flight times and distance and latitudes, and I built this whole thing up. And I said, okay, that's enough to convince me the Earth isn't flat and that it's a globe. And because I have to believe in a conspiracy that, like we talked about before, just the two of us, with any conspiracy, it requires such a monumental effort to pull off. And nobody's ever been to this supposed pizza crust and taken photos or videos. Nobody's ever risked a $30,000 fine, et cetera, et cetera. Those people have all been killed or silenced or whatever. It's just too far. It's a bridge too far for me. So
I think especially too with social media these days,
right?
Twitter and TikTok and Instagram, it's not like it's not 50, 60 years ago where you'd have to go get a news station to be able to help you
broadcast
that.
Yeah, exactly. So recent history has given any person that was willing to take on that adventure the chance to do it. And so there's certainly weird anomalies that happen as you get closer to the South Pole. The magnetic field gets a little disrupted. Compasses don't work. Directional navigation is very difficult. Planes don't fly over the South Pole because it's dangerous, is what the story is. Flat earthers would have you believe that that's just a cover for the fact that they don't want you to discover that you'd bump into the edge of the dome. So all in all, my conclusion after all that, the punchline is I was not converted to be a flat earther, although I did give myself the chance to be. It just took wading into it, really listening to what some of the arguments were, and then finding one thing that I thought, if I can't explain this, then I can't convert. And it ended up confirming what I already felt and believed. So,
and there's more pro arguments for the globe than there are for the flat Earth, as far as being able to defend it. And so it's you're coming from a place presumably that you're seeing and hearing a lot of evidence to back up, like what you were just saying about how to travel, to back up the globe theory rather than the flat Earth theory.
Yes, and it does seem like the burden of proof is on the flat earthers, even though they might see it differently. Say, no, the burden of proof is on the globus, because flat Earth theory precedes globus theory because of the Bible, which is where a lot of them will revert back to. And there's a whole list of Bible verses that are cherry-picked all from all different parts of the Bible that would seem to support more of a flat Earth view, which we all can understand from a pre-modern standpoint, before you had science, before you had measuring instruments, before you had math, that you could excuse. However, it's you and I have talked about before, the Bible was never intended to be a description of the way things actually are.
Mm-hmm.
It is to the degree that the people who wrote it down, that was their reality and that their understanding of the way things actually are.
Yeah.
So that to me seems like another reason that a flat earther, because most of them seem to also be people who it's very, very important to them and necessary that the Bible be taken absolutely literally. And
Yes.
so it seems like another reason, another bias for a person to become a flat earther. And frankly, I wonder why every biblical literist isn't a flat earther, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like we've, said before, if you take the Bible literally, that anyone who doesn't confess Jesus as Lord is doomed for eternal torment in hell. How could you, as a loving Christian, do anything else with your time other than beg every person you run into to
Right.
make that confession? Because otherwise, not caring for them in the way
Mm-hmm.
they should. Both know a lot of Christians who would claim that they take the Bible very literally, who are not flat earthers, and that seems like a logical inconsistency to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because the Bible doesn't make any claims
That's a good point. Yeah.
about it being a globe or spherical,
Right.
and it does make claims that seem to support a flat Earth. Period.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, I wonder where that if it was just because of the teachings that they got brought it went, but even a lot of the flat earthers will self-profess that they've only been a flat earther for 10 years. So
they
it's
got
not
converted.
like it's not like they grew up believing that, and then that's maybe why some other Christians wouldn't be in the same position. But did you, when you went on your trail, your path, did you go to the flatearthsociety.org at all?
I did not. In the video that I watched, they were that particular stream of this ideology said that the Flat Earth Society represents the extreme version of it, and they don't associate with it because they're too radical.
Oh my gosh!
So apparently the flat
There's a spectrum.
Yeah, exactly.
Flat earthers. Okay.
And the Flat Earth Society is like the kooks and the weirdos branch of that.
And so that's the Flat Earth Society. The video that you watched, or some of the other information you saw, is there another name or another?
I didn't see that they associated with any particular organization. It was more just free thinking individuals who
They just haven't gone down the rabbit hole farther enough, maybe.
Or that's too far of a rabbit hole to go for them. Or the claims of the Flat Earth Society are so extreme that nobody will take somebody seriously if they associate with that. Was kind of the impression I got. So like, here we're the flat earthers who aren't as crazy as they are and have just balanced, reasonable arguments and don't need to claim all the things that the society does. So I don't know what their claims are. I haven't researched it. I just know that there was a distinction made.
It seems to me that if you are a flat earther, it almost seems to be believed that we couldn't be possible that we have gone into space, right?
Right. Yeah.
So did they talk about that at all? Like that everything, moon landing, all of the probes, everything has all just been fake? It's all
That's right.
BS.
Yeah, everything. Okay. So there's no, NASA does only exist to deceive. And some people, even in these threads, there's a myth going around that the word NASA in Hebrew means deceiver, which it does not.
Okay.
Repeated often enough, and it becomes true to people who want it to be true. But anything to do with the moon landing, the Hubble telescope, space exploration at all, one of their things that they like to point out is that when we've gotten imagery of low Earth orbit, whether it was from the balloon where the Red Bull guy jumped out of it and did that free fall for the highest free fall ever recorded, or what was another one? I don't know if it was a space station or something to do with Tesla, but there was supposedly what we consider the curvature of the Earth is due to a fisheye lens that was trying to capture as much as possible. And then there's other videos that show a similar distance from Earth, and if you look at the edge of the Earth against space, it's a straight line. It's flat, which was what you'd expect if the Earth wasn't a ball. And so the argument is, anytime you see any video supposedly from space, a low Earth orbit, you're seeing a doctored photo that's using either a fisheye lens or it's been edited in post-production to give it a curve, because that's not really how it looks. That's a big part of their argument, is that the visual data that you've been fed has been, contrived to deceive you and
Sure.
keep it.
And so then all of the quote unquote astronauts or people that work for NASA are all in on, as far as like, just like the moon landing, they're in a studio somewhere as far as those kind of shows, because they're not even in low Earth orbit, right?
Right. Well, they are, but it's not enough to have broken the dome. If they're actually in space, then it's a farce. Yeah,
okay.
I think.
Yeah.
And I think probably, I don't know this for sure, but my hunch would be that, there's only the upper echelon needs to be in on the secret, and the majority of minions working at NASA are also deceived.
Okay.
They're not part of the scam knowingly. They are just being fed the same information the rest of us are and playing their part to perpetuate the lie. But those producing the actual videos and at the top brass would have certainly know about it. To me, it comes down to perspective. So they even quote Neil deGrasse Tyson a little bit, and how he's made some arguments that Earth is so large that even if you go to the edges of our atmosphere, you're only such a fraction of the distance away that it's still going to appear flat to you, because you haven't gotten far enough away from it to see the actual curvature yet, even when you're leaving our atmosphere. So it is still going to look flat, but that doesn't mean it is. And he has a famous illustration that's on YouTube where he takes a large beach ball and holds it up and says, okay, if we go to scale and this is the globe, and you were to get to the edge of our atmosphere, you'd be 2 millimeters above this beach ball, which a millimeter is smaller than an inch. It's very small. And so he kind of tries to show in a way that demonstrates a bit of a visual. If you were the size of a flea and you were standing on a beach ball and you looked around you, and you were up 2 millimeters, it would still look like it was flat. You wouldn't have enough distance to appreciate that it could curve. So as another argument the flat earthers make about places like Kansas, and if a helicopter hovers in one place for 5 hours, how does it still land in the same spot if the globe is rotating underneath it, not taking into account inertia and atmospheric pull?
Yeah.
Which, when that helicopter goes straight up, if the planet is in motion, the helicopter isn't going, well, it's going straight up, but compared to what? Which is another thing that's not considered. They make arguments that if you were moving, you could feel it. If you were hurtling through space and on a spinning globe that was rotating at however fast, it's over 1,000 miles an hour, you should feel it. But again, it's only rotating and hurling through space compared to what? It's assuming there's a fixed object. It's assuming that there's a fixed pizza that doesn't move and that there's no space around it. And now you're contrasting that to a ball hurtling through space at unimaginable speeds. But we have nothing else to compare it to. There's no fixed object. There's no relative thing for us to compare it to. So we are a part of the thing that's moving. Therefore, we don't feel the motion. So
yeah. Well, and I think too that with the size that globe theorists say the Earth is, like, that's also, oftentimes I hear that too. Oh, we're moving, spinning 1,000 miles an hour. Well, it seems like those people are taking that from a standpoint of like a moving car or a plane and being like, oh, that would be so fast. Well, it doesn't seem like they quite put it into perspective of how large
it is,
the globe is. That, and I get it from their perspective that it's the globists are saying it is, but still, let's theoretically say it's that big. For me, it then does make sense that 1,000 miles an hour is not actually going to be
very fast.
That quite fast.
Right.
Yeah, when we're however many thousands of miles circumference.
Right.
Yeah,
how big the Earth is in comparison. It's not. And even if it was spinning 10 times faster, would we notice it? Because there isn't anything for us to compare that to. If we're on a merry-go-round that goes faster and faster and faster, we feel that because it's spinning in relation to the fixed object of the Earth.
Right.
But if the Earth spins faster, it's faster in relation to what?
Yeah.
Nothing else that we have any tangible calculation of. It may be spinning faster compared to the sun or other planets, but we're not in touch with those planets in any physical way, so we wouldn't notice the contrast or the difference as it changes. Yeah.
Unless it was making the stars and the sun.
Right. The days change. Yeah.
Yeah. If those were not if those were more stationary than we were, then there could be a potential problem.
Yeah.
But
Right.
yeah, at that super speeds. I was just from the flatearthsociety.org, their FAQ page. Why would people lie about the shape of the earth? And they have 3 common explanations for this.
Oh, good.
One is to maintain legitimacy. So during the Cold War, they faked the moon landing. They realized that they couldn't reach the moon was due to the flatness of the earth. So they were stuck in a lie, and they had to continue it, or they would lose the legitimacy of our governments. So they still hold on to that due to the role science plays in our ruling of the government. That's number 1.
Okay.
Number 2 is to hide the truth of the Bible. And then number 3 is to gain power and money by siphoning off the space budgets and denying the world the resources of the Antarctic, which I thought was interesting that they were maybe some life-saving resources on the Antarctic. They gain a considerable amount of power and wealth. And then I think, man, we kind of just printed money like it was going out of style during the pandemic. So I don't think they would need NASA if they were wanting to siphoning or put money in certain spots. It seems like they're doing a pretty good job of that outside of the NASA budget.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's good points. And I think you reading those is helpful because it tells you what type of people would be most susceptible to that are people who already believe those things, who already are convinced in their deepest part of their soul that the government is out to XYZ, control, siphon, hide, all those things that you mentioned. If you believe those agendas are already in play, then this is just one more way it's happening. So it's not a big leap to be like, absolutely, they're doing this. Right. And then the quote unquote evidence for it is already halfway there in your mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, it would be interesting to see any of the flat earthers, not just the Flat Earth Society flat earthers, but any of them that are not religious or specifically not Christian, biblical based in a religion, because that seems to be a real big drive of they're trying, you always have to protect yourself from somebody, and there's always a bad guy, and so if we start looking at what we cherry pick these things about the Bible, and then they're trying to tell us that that's wrong. And then everything just starts falling and start confirming.
The dominoes fall into place. So what I hear you saying is if we could find an atheist or a non-religious person who also didn't think that the government was up to no good and trying to control and trick and hide us, and still without either of those was convinced that the earth was flat, that might be a compelling person.
It would be interesting. Absolutely. I think that would be kind of our reasoning for wanting to possibly start this podcast about that would be somebody who would be looking at it from a non-conspiracy and doesn't care why people think that there's a globe or a flat earth, but is looking at a lot of different information, probably like what you were talking about that you were trying to do when you saw the video, and then look up to kind of look to see the travel and the path. It would be really interesting to hear where they're coming from, and I would even respect it more that they don't know why. Why would people lie about the shape of the earth? I have no idea, but it's really interesting that this is going on and this doesn't happen, but this does happen. I kind of feel like that about space exploration and the moon landing, which could be another conversation for another podcast, but there's just a lot of things about, since 1972, there hasn't been any space flights beyond low Earth orbit. I was also looking, there's some research and studies about how much farther. There's a new study from the space physics that was looking at concluding that the edges of the atmosphere actually extend more than 391,000 miles from the planet's surface.
Interesting.
About twice as far as the moon. Doesn't mean that you can go moonwalking without a spacesuit. There's still all those types of things science-wise.
Right.
But it's just interesting things when I've looked at and seen before, even like with the International Space Station is still just in low Earth orbit. And so there's, it's fascinating to kind of see, oh, why wouldn't we have gone back if we did before? Why did SpaceX have to completely come up with a full new way to go to space, and what didn't have any help or any technology from NASA, and they didn't have any of those records to be able to share with it. It's just, there's some interesting things for sure that kind of tie into the whole flat Earth thought process, because I think you do have to have that conspiracy as well, the moon landing being faked and space exploration in general, if you're looking at it from flat Earth perspective.
Yes. Yeah, the moon landing couldn't have happened the way we've been told it is.
Right.
If the Earth is flat. Yeah. And those are all great questions, and those are a lot of the same questions that were raised in the video that I watched.
Yeah.
And there weren't great answers given other than it's all a big lie and the Earth is actually flat.
Yeah. And they're not what's the word, inclusive, or not mutually exclusive, like just because maybe the moon landing was faked, or just because we haven't even gone past low Earth orbit, doesn't mean that it's necessarily flat Earth as well. But I think maybe the flat Earth one probably is mutually exclusive to. If that is true, then you can't have the moon landing in the space, but not necessarily the other way around.
Right. That makes sense.
Which is kind of interesting then to be looking at, well, maybe those could be disconnected, and a whole nother rabbit hole to go down.
I'd be interested in hearing some of those, logicking through some of those, or find out what the common explanation is, or some alternative explanations. So it could be fun. Yeah. Fun thing to explore for sure. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, good for now.
Well, wrapped up our first one.
All right, let's sign off.
Until next time.
Until next time.